If your life had one unexpected bill this month, how bad would it feel? That question matters more than most people think because a lot of people are not broke because they are careless. They are broke because they have no cushion. So when life hits them, even a small hit turns into a crisis. And that is why emergency funds matter so much. Not because they are exciting, because they stop small problems from becoming bigger financial damage. In this video, I want to show you a simple way to build an emergency fund using the 1-3-6 rule. And I like this rule because it is practical. It gives you stages. It gives you a target, and it stops you from feeling like emergency savings is one giant impossible goal, because that is where a lot of people get stuck. They hear they should save 3 to 6 months of expenses. Then they look at the number. Then they freeze. So let's make this easier. The 1-3-6 rule works like this. First, build a $1,000 minimum emergency fund. Then work toward 3 months of living expenses. Then eventually build toward 6 months of living expenses. That is it. 3 stages. Simple, but powerful. So let's break down what each one actually means. Level 1, the $1,000 minimum emergency fund. This is your first line of defense, not your final goal. Your first line of defense. This money is there to stop small emergencies from turning into debt. A car repair, a medical bill, a sudden trip, a broken appliance, a school expense, a surprise bill you did not see coming. That is what the first $1,000 is for. It is not there to make you financially bulletproof. It is there to stop chaos. Because without even a small emergency fund, life becomes too easy to finance on a credit card. And that is where people get trapped. Something small goes wrong. They do not have cash. So they swipe, then interest starts. Then one emergency becomes a longer problem. That is why the first $1,000 matters so much. It creates breathing room. It gives you time. It gives you a little protection. And maybe most importantly, it changes how you feel. Because the moment you have even a small emergency cushion, life stops feeling so fragile. Now, here is the mistake people make. They think $1,000 is too small, so they do not bother. Wrong move. Small is better than zero. Always. A small emergency fund is not weak. It is step 1. And step 1 is better than standing still. So if you currently have no emergency savings, your first mission is not save 6 months. Your first mission is get to $1,000. That is the target. Simple, clear, reachable. Level 2, build toward 3 months of living expenses. Once the first $1,000 is in place, now the game changes. Now you are not just trying to survive a small emergency. Now you are trying to build real stability. And this is where the 3 in the rule comes in. 3 months of living expenses means enough money to cover your basic monthly life for 3 months if your income stopped or got hit. That means rent or mortgage, groceries, transport, utilities, insurance, debt payments, if applicable. Basic essentials, not luxury, not lifestyle extras, your core living expenses. This matters because the bigger emergencies in life are usually not a single bill. They are disruptions, job loss, reduced income, health issues, family emergencies, business slowdowns, unexpected transitions. And when those things happen, a $1,000 emergency fund helps, but it is not enough. That is why 3 months is such an important level. At that point, you are no longer just putting out fires. You are building resilience. You are giving yourself room to recover, room to think, room to make decisions without instant panic. That is powerful because money pressure makes people do desperate things. Take bad jobs, sell assets too fast, use expensive debt, ignore bigger problems because they cannot afford to deal with them properly. A 3-month emergency fund helps stop that spiral. Now, how do you calculate this number? Simple. Add up your essential monthly living expenses, then multiply by 3. That is your 3-month target. So if your basic monthly expenses are $2,000, your 3-month emergency fund target is $6,000. If your basic monthly expenses are $3,500, your target is $10,500. That is the number you are aiming for, not random savings, specific savings. That matters because specific targets make saving easier. Level 3, build towards 6 months of living expenses. Now we get to the final stage, the 6 in the 1-3-6 rule. 6 months of living expenses is where your emergency fund becomes a serious financial shield. This level is not necessary for every single person right away, but it is a strong long-term goal, especially if your life or income is less stable. For example, if you are self-employed, if your income changes a lot, if you work in a volatile industry, if you support a family, if you are the only earner in the household, if it may take longer for you to replace lost income, then 6 months becomes even more valuable because the less predictable your income is, the more valuable margin becomes. And that is really what a full emergency fund is: margin, time, protection. It is the ability to handle real life without everything collapsing. Now, let me say something important here. A 6-month emergency fund is not there to make you rich. It is there to stop you from getting wiped out while trying to get rich. That is the real role of emergency savings. It protects the rest of your financial life. It protects your investments from being sold too early. It protects you from bad debt decisions. It protects you from panic. It protects your peace. And peace matters a lot because people with no margin live under constant pressure. People with strong emergency savings live differently. Not perfectly, but differently. They make calmer decisions. They negotiate better. They recover better. They sleep better. That is real value. So where should you keep your emergency fund? Keep it somewhere safe, simple, and easy to access. This is not money you should be gambling with. This is not money for chasing returns. This is protection money. That means it should usually sit in something like a savings account, a high yield savings account, another safe liquid cash type account. The point is not maximum growth. The point is availability. Because if you need the money, you need the money. And if it is locked up, delayed, or dropping in value because you invested it aggressively, that defeats the purpose. How do you actually build it? This is where people overcomplicate things. The answer is simple. Build it in layers. Start with the first target, then keep going. Do not sit there thinking about the full 6 months if you do not even have your first $1,000. That is like standing at the bottom of a staircase and getting overwhelmed by the top floor. Just take the next step. A practical order looks like this. First, get to $1,000. Then keep building until you hit 3 months. Then keep going until you hit 6 months if your situation calls for it, and make the saving automatic if possible. Set a fixed transfer. Save from each paycheck. Treat it like a bill, not an optional leftover. Because if you only save whatever is left, there is often nothing left. Emergency funds are usually built on purpose, not by accident. What counts as a real emergency? This is a big one because some people build an emergency fund, then drain it for things that were never emergencies. A sale is not an emergency. A holiday is not an emergency. A random upgrade is not an emergency. Eating out because you are tired is not an emergency. An emergency fund is for urgent, necessary, unexpected expenses. That is the standard. If it is not urgent, not necessary, or not unexpected, then it probably does not belong there. That boundary matters because if you keep dipping into the fund for normal life, the fund never becomes strong. Here's the real point of the 1-3-6 rule. It turns a vague idea into a clear path. That is why I like it. You are not just trying to save more. You are following stages. $1,000 first, then 3 months, then 6 months. That structure makes the goal feel lighter. And when money goals feel lighter, people are more likely to stick with them. Here is the main takeaway. The 1-3-6 rule helps you build emergency savings in the right order. 1 is your minimum emergency cushion. 3 is your stability target. 6 is your stronger long-term protection target. And if you do not have an emergency fund yet, do not let the full number scare you. Start with the first step, because the first $1,000 can already change how your life feels. Then build from there. That is how real financial strength usually works. Not all at once, step by step. Now watch the next video about the 5 levels to getting rich this year.